Hey, fellas.
Hey.
Hey, hey. So 3 years ago, His Excellency Ahmed Azabi, the chairman of ADGM, puts his baseball cap on and says, "We are the capital of capital." And you just had Abu Dhabi Finance Week. Tell us a little bit about how he made that happen. What's going on in Abu Dhabi?
Now, that's been actually a great story, right? Still evolving, but still a great story. So you're right. I mean, 3 years ago, His Excellency Ahmed Jassim was appointed as the chair of Abu Dhabi Global Markets. Since then, he's gone on to take multiple other roles, whether it's at the Department of Economy, the Investment Promotion Office, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I mean, in the last 3 years, we've been the fastest growing financial district in the world, right? We've had our AUMs quadrupling. We've had, workforce, number of entities doubling. So it's been a great journey.
I mean, that's a spicy claim in a year where there's a lot of, everything. We used to talk about millions to billions. Now we're talking about billions to trillions. We heard some really exciting news coming out of Davos and out of the UAE crew there. It's one of the safest cities in the world, and you guys are riding the high. Everybody wants to know a little bit about Abu Dhabi. So what do you think is different about Abu Dhabi in the alts investment space compared to maybe some of those other financial hubs? What's giving Abu Dhabi its edge?
I think that's a great question, right? So there's a few things. I mean, we've been officially, called the capital of capital last year, where when the Sovereign Wealth Fund Institute came out and said Abu Dhabi is the richest city in the world, we have sovereign assets of over 1.7 trillion. You add family offices, that number goes up to $2.3 trillion.
Yeah.
So we've always been kind of, from a financial capital standpoint, Abu Dhabi has always been quite big. It's the other capital elements that we talk about, right? Whether it's technological capital. Today we are one of the premier AI hubs globally. And we've got massive investment into the technology and AI space. Whether it's the cultural capital, we've got, of course, Louvre, but we've got 6 other museums coming up over the next year that are going to be opened up in Abu Dhabi. So there's the deep cultural roots, and of course, most importantly, there's human capital, right? We've been blessed with some great talent, and thanks to the kind of immigration rules in the UAE, we are, as a tagline goes, open for business. And we're able to recruit some of the best talent from around the world.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, obviously there was huge news in the AI space this week, and this is something that I'm not sure that many people know, that Dr. Alex Lipton is actually based in Abu Dhabi, and this is something that he had been talking about for a few years. Now, that was a fundamental thing, was that this was his thesis. It's one of the preeminent, I think, quant minds in the world at ADIA, and really focusing the strategy on that. So can we stay here for a minute, since we're in the AI
give
space?
These guys
so
a chance
yeah, exactly. We'll get I mean, none of it happens without risk and regulation. So we'll get to Lawrence in a minute there. But Abu Dhabi is really putting its mark from Arab language models to really looking at adopting the space. I know that you guys are working on something really special there too.
Absolutely, right? I think you hit the nail on the head. Talent and human capital is probably the single most important factor.
Yeah.
That's driving innovation in Abu Dhabi, that's driving some really cool stuff that we're doing in Abu Dhabi. You talked about Dr. Alex Lipton. I mean, he's of course a noted global luminary in the field.
Yeah.
And we have quite a few of those, right? Marcos, other people as well, in the quant space. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff happening, whether it's the deal that we've done with Microsoft, whether it's building our own LLMs that we've done with the Advanced Technology Research Center,
yeah.
Or whether it's all the other cool stuff they're doing at the NVIDIAs of the world and others, right? So there's a lot of stuff happening in the space. And I think Abu Dhabi has been voted the most livable city in the region. It's the safest city in the world for the last 8 years, or I think this was 9th year that we got voted that. So yeah, I mean, it's a place that's, it's got great hard infrastructure, soft infrastructure. Of course, we've got the first AI university in the world in Mohammed bin Zayed, the AI university that was set up. Yeah, I mean, we've got, it's a place where, I would ask everyone to come and visit, because there's a lot happening. It's very exciting times.
And a lot of that has to do with regulations, Lawrence. I'll tell you, a few years ago when everyone was getting Howie notices here in the United States. I had friends who were setting up Bitcoin rigs off of their horse stables, and you would go to the neobank, to the native Abu Dhabi bank, and get an NFT in your wallet. So what are you guys working on there that makes you, what are some of those main contributors to setting up business for FDI and for foreigners in Abu Dhabi?
So I think there's three real advantages to setting up in ADGM. The first is the direct application of English common law. Second is our financial services legislation. And then the third thing is our courts. And all three are very important, and that creates that legal certainty. So if you're an international business and you're wanting to come and do business from the UAE, Abu Dhabi and ADGM, you've got a place of business where you can get legal certainty, and that's critical. So on the financial services side, which obviously I work for, we've been very busy making sure, first of all, that we're aligned with international standards, because we're an international financial free zone. So whether it's IOSCO on the security side, Basel on the banking side, IS on the insurance, FATF on the financial crime side, very important, right? So we start with that, but we've also been fortunate that because we've been in operation for 10 years, we've been able to be progressive and innovative as well. So we brought in the region's first digital assets framework back in 2018. At the time, that was very much led by the industry. We were engaging with them and they said they wanted to be regulated. So we brought in a full regulatory framework, not just around financial crime, but licensing, financial crime risks, prudential, operational risk, all those sorts of things. But we've continued to sort of innovate and grow that. We came out with the framework for stablecoins just recently last year, and we continue to engage with our industry, looking to see how we can adapt our regulations to make sure that we still have investor protection, protecting the markets and so forth, but also being innovative. So how do you think that the FSRA ensures a balance between like those investor protections and having that competitive environment? And I'm thinking of that in many lenses, and then here in the United States, we're obviously changing our landscape. And I'll tell you, we often reference Abu Dhabi as one of the models that we're looking at. So knowing that the world around you is changing, where are you seeing Abu Dhabi position itself? Yeah. So on the regulatory side, I mean, investor protection is one of our key statutory objectives, and that will always be there. I think disclosure obviously is one way that happens to make sure the investors get clear information, it's fair, and it's not misleading. So those general sort of themes around all the business models that we see. But again, most of the sort of businesses that we have in ADGM very much targeting institutional and high net worth individuals. So we're a risk-based regulator. So if you're dealing with mums and dads, you're going to have to be much more careful with your disclosure and much more clear and fair around what you're communicating. But obviously with institutional investors, it's a little bit different as well.
So that would be folks like Brevan Howard, Ryan.
It would.
So tell us a little bit about your investment thesis around Abu Dhabi and why Abu Dhabi in particular. What are you seeing out there now?
We're a global, for those who don't know, Brevan Howard, we're a global hedge fund. We have offices in numerous different jurisdictions, subject to 12 regulatory authorities now. And we have offices in the States, we have offices in the UK, Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong. The one place we didn't have was really to sort of to give us the sort of global reach and the global coverage was somewhere in the Middle East. So we did a bit of a tour of the Middle East, met numerous different regulators, numerous different jurisdictions, and we were just blown away by the ADGM. So Alan met the chairman. I got a call in London, and Alan said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Whatever you want me to do." So he said, "The ADGM are coming to your office tomorrow." So I said, "Okay." And then they were luckily doing a roadshow in London at the time. So there were about 7, I think, representatives of the ADGM who trooped in. I'd never been to Abu Dhabi at this time, so this is all a surprise for me. They did the pitch. Both of you were there,
yep.
I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask, were you guys in
what
happened?
Yeah. And I was remarkably impressed by what they were saying, and they said, "Come, we can, if you do a decent application, we get it done, you get approval soon, and everything else." And this was unusual for a regulator to be expressing such views. So they said, what are you doing next week? And I said, well, I don't know, what are we doing next week? So then it was the first Abu Dhabi Finance Week, which was 3 years ago. Went to Abu Dhabi that week. I was blown away there, and again, was made to feel very welcome. Met the chairman, who's a massive Chelsea fan. And we ended up talking a lot about football. And you don't often get to do that with somebody in that type of role.
Yeah.
So again, it was made to feel very welcome. Then we decided to launch our application, and from launch to getting full approval, it took 6 weeks. A normal regulatory approval will take you 6 months, maybe a year in most jurisdictions. So part of the reason why we were there is because we were made to feel welcome, and it was a great proposition put forward to us. And we obviously talk about the English law. We talk about the regulator being adaptable, commercial, but hard. It's a legitimate regulator who makes sure you do things correctly. But if you do things correctly, then they will speak to you and they will have a conversation. Most other regulators don't do that.
Yeah.
So part of it was the draw of that. Then there was a time zone. So we trade macro. And it's actually a beautiful time zone to trade macro, because you can trade Asia, you can trade Europe, and you can even touch the opening of the States. So the main 3 sort of jurisdictions which you would want to straddle, you can absolutely straddle there without it ruining your day. And you can get the head start on Europe as well, because without having to get up too early, because you're 4 hours ahead or whatever it might be, depending on time of year. So that was another factor which drew us to it. And then, as Arvind said, it's an incredibly safe city. It's a wonderful place to live, great schools and everything else. All of those were pull factors. But one of the key things which made us choose it is because we're in a global battle for talent. Hedge funds, it's a ruthless business in relation to that. Everybody in the audience is probably very familiar with that. And a lot of people want to be able to actually have, to live in the Middle East. I was in London before I moved to the Middle East. London is not what it once was. And so apologies to the Americans here who may be New Yorkers. I don't think New York is once what it was. Yeah. A lot of people want to go to a place which is safe, secure, and you can do your business in a very efficient manner. And if we're going to compete against other firms that have that, we need to have it as well. So the war for talent was a main driver as well. And look, this isn't going to help out American citizens, unfortunately, but obviously it's a 0% tax rate as well. So I moved from a 47% tax rate to a 0% tax rate. That's quite a driver. And it's one of the main sort of significant reasons why a lot of our PMs are out there as well. So you combine all of that together, and it's just a phenomenal value proposition for any firm. And if you are going to compete on a global basis, you have to have a presence in the Middle East. And to me, and for our choice, the only place to go was Abu Dhabi.
So I hear you on the tax rate. I feel it. And I am really cognizant and aware of the fact that we do have, in the United States, I know that there's a lot of interest looking at the Middle East, and probably very, relatively little or comparatively little exposure. And some of that has to do with some of the hardline constraints that happen on anybody who would be interested in, setting up shop there, bringing talent there, deploying capital there. What do you see, talk to the Americans now. So what are you seeing on the landscape, and what's out there on the horizon? What would you do if you were in their shoes today?
So well, everybody's going there. So literally it's a case of, so we started out about 2 years ago. I was employee number 1. I've been at Brevan for 12 years then. I've been in Abu Dhabi 2 years now. I was employee number 1. Now we have over 100 people there because people want to go, so you have to give them that choice. The other thing is that some of our very significant PMs moved as well. So we run about a third of our AUM from Abu Dhabi now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And again, they wanted to have that further life experience which they're receiving. So if we want to be competitive, we need to be there for that. The other thing, though, which was pleasantly surprising, is actually the existing infrastructure already there. Because, as I say, I hadn't been there until 3 years ago. And I didn't know much about Abu Dhabi. People know about Dubai because Dubai is always in the news and people have been there on holiday and everything else. Dubai to me is just too busy and too crowded and too insane. Nice place to visit, I couldn't live there. But Abu Dhabi is wonderful because you can go, and if you want to go and have the craziness of Dubai on the weekend, you can go, but you have a serene life in Abu Dhabi. But it's probably a better life than what I would have had in London. So from my office, I can walk to Zuma, Koya, Le Petit Maison, numerous different restaurants which you would want to go to and do go to in London or New York or wherever it might be. But I can do that within a 5-minute walk from my office.
The quality of life thing, I mean, we do hear that a lot. At Davos, we heard His Highness and His Excellency were talking a lot about, safest city in the world, highest X-fold increase in FDI. And then we heard a lot about Vision 2030 and sort of how the diversification is happening. Walk us through that and how it's changing the sort of investment and capital deployment landscape.
So just, I mean, this is why we're there as well, because they have a vision. So many countries don't anymore, or there's a very short-termist view because elections happen every sort of 4 or 5 years. They can have a vision for 15 years' time, whatever it might be, 20 years' time, 30 years' time, because they can deliver it. And having that certainty of vision, having that certainty of economic growth almost, because it's running close to 10% a year, you just don't get that anywhere else. No way you have the ability to be very flexible in relation to your business. We also do crypto trading. We trade about 2 billion worth of crypto in our crypto funds. And we do a significant proportion of that in Abu Dhabi as well.
Do you see that increasing? I'm so curious about this, just, again, from that very seated American perspective. How are you seeing digital assets and crypto develop in the ecosystem in the UAE, in the region, I guess, but in Abu Dhabi in particular?
I mean, the region's insane. The amount of entrepreneurs which you have there who have set up shop in the region generally, but and Dubai and Abu Dhabi have probably got an equal share in relation to it. But that ecosystem which has developed, it goes back to the vision in relation to what the country wants to do. They want to invest in the future because they know that eventually the oil will run out. And so this is why they're investing in green technology. This is why they're investing in AI. This is why they're investing in blockchain and crypto investments, because they want to be at the cutting edge, and large language models, Falcon, and everything else. It's literally any of the industries of the future, Abu Dhabi is heavily invested in it already, and is, if not the world leader, but then is certainly in the pack in relation to all of them, because they can do it, because they have the vision to do it. And we wanted to be part of that because we want to be thriving in the future technologies as well. And you need to be immersed in that. And if you're going to be trading crypto, there's literally probably, I think, no other jurisdiction in the world which has the certainty of regulation, has a certainty of taxation, which is a huge thing in relation to crypto, because a lot of tax authorities don't know how to treat it. And so you can get some very nasty surprises. And then you obviously have the ability to live a great life with zero tax if you do make loads of money, which, again, is a driver for a lot of the crypto firms who are setting up. Because they want that, they crave that certainty, they crave the capital, and there's a lot of capital which is also present in the region, which are being invested into these technologies as well. So it ticks all of the boxes.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, what are some of those sectors there? There's digital assets, you've got that high technology. So what else are we looking at in the region and in the UAE in particular, in Abu Dhabi?
I think you've mentioned a few of those, right? I mean, coming back to your question earlier, Mona, Abu Dhabi is one of those places where you've got the vision, as you rightly said, but then the leadership is also very driven on execution, right? Because to me, a vision without execution then doesn't quite work. And one of the things that Abu Dhabi believes in is in partnering with people, right? So that's been the Abu Dhabi model all along. You start off with what ADNOC did, 50 years ago, and the way RDR started off 50 years ago. And you look at even the ethos today, it's that one of partnership. So we like to partner with people. So whether it's the Microsofts of the world today, or whether it's the NVIDIAs of the world, or whether it's with the large asset managers, the Apollos of the world, or the BlackRocks of the world, right? The model is the same. It's one of partnership. In terms of these sectors that you were talking about, I mean, of course, financial services is a big sector. And we're seeing the growth of the financial services sector year on year. The other mega trends that are playing out, I guess, in the world, and Abu Dhabi has been a big player in it, as Ryan said, is energy transition. Today, we're one of the largest renewable investors in the world. And we are setting up the largest single-site solar panel, you're probably aware, in the world. And we've got investments into hydrogen, we've got investments into water, into different things there. The third thing would be digital assets, of course. We've spoken about it, crypto, digital assets, but the broader blockchain, tokenization, that element. And of course, not to forget AI, right? I mean, where we are heavily invested. We had MGX set up last year. That's $100 billion. We did the Microsoft deal. We've got Falcon, as Ryan mentioned. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the sectors. Industrials continues to be a big sector for us. I mean, today we are the 5th largest aluminum producer in the world. One of the largest steel producers in the region as well. So yeah, I mean, it's quite diversified in terms of where we're going.
Yeah. Comes always back to risk mitigation and regulation, though, Lawrence. So just walk us through. I know we don't have enough. We just here in our last few minutes here, what's on the horizon for the way that you're seeing the context of Abu Dhabi in, I guess, the new digital, the Anthropocene, the digital world order? How are you going to position Abu Dhabi and ADGM, ADIA, all of the entities there to stay at the cusp of things that change?
Like that? Yeah, no, so one of the key areas of focus for us is innovation and technology. Yep. And so we were one of the first regulators in the region to set up a sandbox, fintech, and obviously we've seen that progression over the last few years with digital assets. But one of the areas we as a regulator are spending a lot of time on is regtech and subtech tools, yeah. In particular looking at using and adopting AI into a lot of what we do, from licensing, from supporting some of our investigations. And so we're very much having a look at that and very much trying to bring in some broader governance requirements and ethics requirements. We've already worked with the regulators in the UAE to issue some guidelines around how we see these emerging technologies, whether it's big data and analytics, cloud computing, and so forth. And we're very, very much a principle-based regulator. What we do is we try to set out the outcomes that we want our institutions to get to, rather than very prescriptive type regulations. And most of our institutions, they're compliant. And so as Ryan was sort of saying, we're prudent with when we want to take action against our firms, because most of our firms, we set out the outcomes we want, and then we make sure that they're working towards achieving that.
So for someone out here who's looking at the region and looking at the Middle East, and you may not know about the Middle East or be interested in the Middle East, but the Middle East is interested in you, I hear said often. What are some closing thoughts, gentlemen, about the future of the region, the future of Abu Dhabi as you see it, in terms of someone who's never been there before and is maybe a little intimidated? What's one thing that's gonna...
I mean, the one thing I would say is come visit, right? If I'm going to start there, because it is a beautiful city. It's, it's, as we like to call it, the Renaissance state, right? Or as the chairman likes to call it. It's extremely livable, it's beautiful, it's catered towards families. So that's one. And I think in many ways, the way Abu Dhabi is building itself, as the panel has been speaking about, is the city of the future, right? Abu Dhabi as a city has never been worried about taking massive bets on what we believe is the future.
Yeah.
So you look at the mega trends playing out in the world today, you'll see Abu Dhabi at the forefront of most of those. So you got to come and experience it.
I think that's right. Tech has proven it's anyone's game, right? Especially this week. So I think big, bold bets are kind of in the order. Larry, Ryan?
Yeah, so for me, I think very much to the Abu Dhabi leadership, I think the big difference I see is very much around their openness to immigration policy and people coming from all around the world. They want the best talent. And what I find really great is the integration with our UAE nationals and the Emiratisation around that, the fact that we live, work together. That's, I think, one of the plus sides of working in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE.
For me, Abu Dhabi is it's East meets West. It's the one place, we're living in an incredibly polarized world at the moment, and it's the one place where all nationalities mix. Europe and America comes, China comes, they all do business in the UAE, and they all do business in Abu Dhabi, and it's all appropriate and good and regulated business because we have very robust regulators. But it's the one place with the vision for the future. And if you've never been, then you must go. But just even go on holiday, it's a brilliant place to go. But we have some people who have been in other jurisdictions when Hong Kong took off, for example.
Yeah.
And they now live in Abu Dhabi, and they say the feel of Abu Dhabi now is when Hong Kong was just taking off. And that vibrancy, that drive, that desire to create something special is present in everything they do. And I've lived in many different jurisdictions. I've never seen that before myself, but it's very it's great to be part of it.
Well, that's exciting. It is a diverse, young, and dynamic place willing to take big, bold bets in the region. So I hope we see you there and we see you in Abu Dhabi really soon. Thank you.
Thank you.